Hi, it's Nadia here. Thank you for joining me for my earring making workshop, where together we'll be learning how to make all the basic earring wires you need to go on and make some fabulous jewellery with. Today I'll be focusing on hoops, and during each one of these workshops I will show you 3 different styles: a quick and simple style, a classic style, and a statement style. So let's have a look at the materials and the tools that I will be using. The tools I'm using today are my round nose pliers, my flat nose pliers, a pair of flush cutters, and if you only have your standard cutters, you really should have a pair of flush cutters when you're making wire jewellery. And I'm also using bent nose pliers. You don't have to use these, you can always use just your flat nose pliers, but you will find these very easy and very useful when making wire jewellery. You will need a chasing hammer and a metal jewellery block, a file if you have one, but if you don't have a proper file, you can use a nail file. I always like to have a ruler ready. And you need some forms, cylindrical forms, and I am just going to be using a rolling pin and a marker pen. For my wire, I'm going to be using a 20 gauge wire, which you can use in any plating colour that you want. But for these hoop earrings, don't try and use a heavier gauge, because it will be too difficult to put it into your ear, and don't use a finer gauge because it will not hold the shape. Be sure to use proper jewellery wire when you're making earrings so that you don't end up with an allergic reaction. First up, I'm going to show you how to make these quick and simple, beautiful hoops. To make these hoops, I'm going to use 2 lengths of approximately 10 centimeters of my wire, and as I would like them to be quite big, I'm going to use quite a large rolling pin to shape them on. Holding your wires together, bench them over your rolling pin to get the basic curve. Then take them off. So I'm just going to line up one side of the ends, and I'm going to decide roughly how long I want the end to be once I've bent it. I think this is good. And with my bent nose pliers, I'm just going to give it a slight angle, which is where my bend is going to be. With my shape, my basic shape in place, I'm now going to gently hammer them so that the shape is maintained. So I'm hammering gently right up to the curve and just where the curve is, but not on the back part. I'll do it on both parts, on both earrings. When you hammer the wire, it hardens the metal and it will keep the shape. As I hammer it, the back part won't be lying flat anymore. Don't try and flatten it with your hammer. It hangs much better if it's got a slight angle when you're wearing it. So now I just have to decide if this is the length that I want, or do I want it slightly shorter. And I think I'm just going to trim it ever so slightly. So put them together so they're exact. And I'm just going to cut the backs so they're a little bit shorter. And now I'm going to just texture my metal a little bit to give it a bit more detail. I do this with the ball side of my hammer. So I'm almost done now. I'm just going to, I like to square off the ends so that they're completely straight. So with my flush cutters facing me, I'm just going to snip the end a tiny bit. And again on the other side. And all that's left to do is file these ends so there are no sharp edges when it goes in your ears. You can do it with your file if you have one. You just have to do it several times from different angles just to make sure it's nice and rounded. And check it. Alternatively, you can do it with a nail file. Same thing, just spend a bit of time doing this to make sure there's nothing sharp so you don't injure yourself when you wear your earrings. Your super simple hoops are now ready to wear. Next up, I'm going to show you how to make a classic hoop. You can make these any size that you want. I'm going to make a relatively small hoop, so I'm going to use a marker pen, which is roughly the size that I want. And I've got 2 pieces of wire, my 20 gauge wire that I've cut. For this size hoop, I've cut about 7 centimeters. Before I start, I'm going to put them together and straighten one of the edges with my flush cutters, with the flush side facing me. Now I'm going to bring both the wires around my marker pen, so I've got my curve in place, and I'm going to take it off. So I need a slight overlap. I've got more overlap than I need here, but it's a good start. And I'm going to make a 90-degree angle to start off with, just where my overlap starts on one side of the wire. You can do this with your flat nose pliers or with your bent nose ones, which I find quite easy. So all I'm wanting to do is fold it. So I've got a 90-degree angle going straight up, just where the join is, where the overlap is. I'm going to do the same with the second wire. I'm just going to quickly put it back on my tube just to get the curve a bit better. Next, you need to make the little loop that goes on the other side. I'm going to do this by placing my bent nose pliers again just where the join is, and I'm just going to give my wire a little bend. Like so. And now I'm going to cut it shorter because all I need to do is make a loop now. So I'm leaving about 1/2 centimetre for my loop. I'm just going to straighten it a little bit so it's neater before I make my loop. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And trim it. Now I'm going to make my loop using my round nose pliers. So very, very slight overhang, just slightly over the edge. And I don't want my loop to be very big, so I'm only going a small way down my pliers, and I'm just going to make my loop. I've got my loop in place, but it's facing the wrong direction now. So I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and I'm going to take hold of my loop and twist it around. So the loop is continuous to my ring. Now I can just trim the end of my earring wire so that it fits through the loop. I'd say you need about 1/2 centimetre here, so snip it with your pliers, and now your hoop is ready. And to finish it off, I'm going to place it on my marker one more time just to work the shape. And then I'm going to hammer it gently to keep it. When you're hammering your hoop, make sure you don't hammer the top part, only the bottom part. So now you have a pair of classic hoops, which you can wear plain, or you can put beads or charms on them, as I've done here. So just open your hoop and slip your bead or your charm on it. I'm just going to put a little star on this one. And you have a perfect hoop earring to wear. The last earring that I'm going to show you how to make is a large hoop, more of a statement earring. I'm going to teach you how to make the basic hoop, and you can of course accessorize it and put beads and charms on it, or just wear it plain. So let's have a look. The size of these earrings, again, is down to personal choice, but I'd like them to be quite big as they're a statement. So I'm going to use a slightly larger rolling pin to make them, and I've cut slightly bigger wires this time. They're about 15 centimeters long, and I start off by benching them around my rolling pin. And I'm going to have two tails. You need quite long tails for this one. So a tail on each side. I've ended up with two pieces like this. And I'm going to shape them actually on the rolling pin so that they hold their shape better. Because this is such a large hoop, if I did it not on a shape, it would be quite difficult to keep the shape. So I'm going to do one at a time. And I've got both my tails more or less even. So one of them, I'm going to take my bent nose pliers and I am just going to bend one of the tails back. So I've got a 90-degree angle. I'm just going to take it off my rolling pin so you can see it better. Next, I'm going to take the other tail that I've got and I'm going to bend it round this 90-degree tail. So I'm going to take it around here and bend it. Just here. And now I'm going to take it off. So I've got my basic shape and one tail pointing upwards and the second tail going around it. And I'm going to take my bent nose pliers, and this is where they are particularly handy, easier to use than your flat nose ones, because what I want to do is give it a squeeze, my bend, so it's very tight. It's much easier to do with these. So I've brought my little loop closer together. And now I'm just going to put it back on here and I'm going to bend this tail. I'm going to wrap it around twice. Once and again. Twice. So 2 wraps of my tail. I'm going to cut it. As close as I can. And with my pliers, I'm just going to bring my little coil closer together. And I'm going to tuck that little sharp edge. I'm going to tuck it in. I've made both my hoops. They're ready now. I'm going to hammer them before I finish them. Now when I hammer these hoops, I actually want them to be completely flat. I know on some of the other hoops I've told you to make sure that the little curve stays. So I'm going to hammer them right from the top where my little coil is. Don't hammer the coil too hard because you don't want to break it, but it's quite nice to flatten it. So I'm going to do the same on the second one. I'm going to finish my hoops by making a loop at the top. I'm going to make a bend, a 90-degree bend with my flat nose pliers, like so. And then I'm going to trim the excess wire. So it's about 1/2 centimetre that I've got left. And now I'm going to make a loop with my round nose pliers. Your loop needs to be at a 90-degree angle to your hoop. So if you've made it where your loop is going with the hoop, so the wrong way, all you need to do is grab your flat nose pliers, hold your hoop and give it a little twist, yank it around so it's at a 90-degree angle. This way, it will hang properly off your earring. All you need to do now is attach your hoops to your earring hooks. And in the next workshop, I will be teaching you how to make your earring hooks, your earring wires. So you'll have to watch next time. And your lovely big hoops are ready. You can wear them plain. You can make them bigger or smaller, and if you want, you can just add some beads and charms to them to make them into even more of a statement. If you want to add beads and charms onto these hoops, make sure they're looped and pinned, or you can add them with a jump ring simply by opening your loop . And closing it. You can add whatever you want to your earring. Enjoy making your hoops and customizing them to your own taste. I look forward to seeing you next time, where we will learn how to make ear wires. In the meantime, don't forget to look at our website for all your materials and also for a whole lot of inspiration.